Okay, welcome to our first session of the apprenticeship job preparedness. I love teaching this every year. It's really nice to get to know all the apprentices better because I haven't spent a ton of time with you all. And this is also really relevant content. I always find that the apprentices are pretty invested, which is nice to, as a teacher, to have students be invested in content, and there's good reason to be invested in this content. So let's begin. And I have Jody and Lena here today. So why are we doing the job preparedness workshop? And I think I looked this over, and it's like maybe this 5th time doing this with I think apprentices, or this, it might be, yeah, I think that's right. So the 5th or 6th time doing this, which is pretty crazy. And doing it with, we do front end apprentices, and we also do the full stack apprentices. So both apprentices get this unit because it's so important. But why are we doing this? You're getting the coding skills every day. You've gotten them since day 1 of signing on to a Sparkbox apprenticeship and being in Dayton and now remote. You're coding every day. So you've got the coding skills. You're going to keep learning those as you're here and until the end of your apprenticeship. Now you just need to know how to apply for jobs. And I think most of you've all held jobs. So you've applied to jobs, you've done this before, but it can be different in the web development world, and figuring out how to tell people about your skill set and bringing that knowledge forward with you as you hope to apply for jobs maybe in this industry. That's what I'm going to try to help you to do. So, and just to get, even if you never got like, you know, that background on how to write a good resume or write a good cover letter, I think it's still really good refresher content, and especially good content because web development resumes and cover letters can look so different from, like I know Luis, you were in the pharmaceutical industry, Smita, you were like a teacher, like those resumes look very different than the resumes that people accept in the web industry. Things are a lot less formal, and there are certain things you can do to really elevate your profile to a company that you wouldn't do in other areas. So that's why we do this. And I want you to know how to highlight your own strengths and feel comfortable applying to jobs. Things we want you to come away with are a really strong resume, a cover letter template. We'll talk more about that in the session 2, knowledge of the web industry norms and applying for jobs, and salary negotiation skills when you get the jobs. We kind of just went over all that. So let's begin. And again, Jody and Lena, if you'd like to pause me at any point and say some advice that you have or something that you thought of that you really want to share, please feel free to stop me. Okay. So again, everything I'm going to say for resumes, for cover letters, anything that's all for the web industry. This is a weird little pocket of the industry where we can be more casual and chatty in ways on our resumes and cover letters that you can't other places, and do certain things for your resume that you would never do for a teaching position or other types of jobs out there. So don't recommend this to your friends in other fields. So let's have a little open discussion. What do you think would make a good developer resume? What might be different than other resumes, like traditional style resumes, which normally have like experience, education, and then maybe an additional extracurriculars or hobbies section? I'm trying to think of the traditional one.
I mean, I usually like seeing like more what you've been doing in terms of like, side projects and like seeing stuff actually implemented.
Like links to projects or something like that, and talking about those projects. Yeah, I agree. I think that's very useful and very helpful to see, like, okay, you just worked on a React app. We need someone to work on React, so this is good.
Having like a skills section as well.
Yes, yeah. I think that's pretty different from a lot of industries. You wouldn't have necessarily a long skill section, but for web development, you kind of have to figure out a way to list out, I know these technologies across all these different spectrums of like front end, back end, and this is the constant challenge of figuring out how to write that well on a resume. I don't think I've personally done it well, and I'll show you an example, but yes, definitely that's one of the biggest things that comes to my mind, the skills.
Yeah, I would think that for tech industry, there's a lot less importance placed on the education section.
Yeah, I think depending on the company you're applying to, yes. And I've definitely moved, like I used to be told that education should come first, and that's how you write a resume. And I think mine is now at the bottom, and it's much shorter than it used to be, just because it doesn't matter if you're really smart in college if you can't do the web things we're asking of you. Yes, totally. Anything else? I think those are all what I thought of, so. Great. Okay, so important sections for a developer resume, just to restate some of the things, and there's one extra thing that we didn't get to. So I personally, this is a personal thing, I like to have a goal or objective on a resume. This is something I like to do. You don't have to do it. I think it can be good if you do it the right way. It's really important to say, you know, how you can specifically help or add to a company. It's not just, you know, I want to do this kind of job for this reason. It's a way to kind of tailor your resume and say, you know, I want to bring this skill set to Apple and be able to create beautiful Apple OS interfaces or something like that. Like if you can, this is the one place where you can really tailor specifically what you want to do for a role or for a company, and how you can help them. So it can be pretty powerful if you do it right. Excuse me, cat. Then we discussed, Susmita brought this up, having a technical skills section, so highlighting the technologies you're familiar with. This is one of the biggest differences, I think, of a developer resume. And then additionally, this doesn't have to be called extracurriculars. There's probably other words for it, like activities, or I don't know, you can think of other words for this, but if you've attended meetups in Dayton before all this, if you're attending online like webinars now, which I highly recommend, like if someone posts something in the dev channel and there's like another online conference or, you know, one session you can go to, you should go to those things, just in the way that you would have gone to the meetups in the Dayton space below the office where they had those meetups. It's a really good way to learn good skills, even if you don't totally understand what they're talking about, or it's not related to, you know, web development. If it's about UX and Julie's giving a talk, like go to those things. It makes you a better web developer, and you could put those skills on your resume as having gone to those kind of things. So you can say like, I attended the Dayton Web Developers webinar online, and you know, I'm a part of this group and this group, and it can be a good way to network as well. But just to kind of two-sided, so keep learning different skills while you're here. It's especially nice when they're like 30-minute or hour chunks that you can fit into your week, and then that's a place to maybe network too. So I'd look for some of those online meetups that maybe they've moved stuff online recently, like Dayton Web Developers and Dayton Code Together. There's so many out there. There's like ones in Columbus that I think Sparkbox is familiar with. There's like a React meetup in Pittsburgh that I don't know if they're doing stuff online right now, but they can be good places to try to network and learn if they have online webinar stuff. Actually, Code and Supply is a good one in Pittsburgh, and they're still doing, I think, online learning right now and having webinars, and they're a pretty good community to be involved with. So yeah, write that one down, Code and Supply, that's a good one. Let's see. Yeah, any questions about all that? Time is it? Okay, so this is like what I was talking about with the objective, where you can kind of say like, I want to work at your company for, you know, I want to do these kind of skills at your company and bring this to you. You can really tailor your objective to a company and to a role. You can also tailor other parts of your resume to each job if you want to. It's definitely more work, it's more time, but if, you know, a role or a company is really of interest to you, I would say you should do this if you really are interested in that job. There's going to be places where maybe you're just trying to send out resumes to, and maybe you don't do this as much. You have to weigh your time there, of course. But you can tailor your experience as well. So, for example, if you're applying for a JS web developer position, don't highlight C++ work you're doing, highlight JavaScript work you've done and projects that involve JavaScript. Like put this, if you only have 3 projects that you've ever done, just reorder them. Don't have the C++ one at the top, have it at the bottom. So just kind of ordering your experience or tailoring, if they said, this role would require you to use React. Like if you've done anything with React, highlight that somewhere in your resume if you can bring it out. So that's really helpful because sometimes big places will have like resume sorters where it goes through this robot that like picks out certain words from your resume and sees if you even have those words in there. And if you don't, it doesn't send them on to a real person. At least that's my understanding of how those work. So that's really good to put the right words into your resume of what's in the posting. It can help it get through to the next level, especially if there's a robot on top of the process before a person. It's like a clever way around the system. And then also people don't read resumes really thoroughly. So if they're skimming and they see, okay, React, Trey-S, like, great, this person looks good, they can go on to the next round. Like, that's what people are doing if they have to go through 100 resumes. So make it easier for them and do that work beforehand. So your resume appears right for the position, and it probably is right, but they don't have to weed through and do the work to find, okay, well, they've probably done JavaScript because they took a course called Learning JavaScript, but like make it easier for the person who's looking over your resume. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd love to add something there. Tailoring your resume is really, really smart. It's really beneficial to you, but I would say only do it if you're absolutely committed to making sure that it's right. Because we will get resumes that come in and they're like, I'm so excited to work for you, flow one. And it really works against the person because it's like, I can tell that you're not that excited to work for Sparkbox if you're using a resume that you just sent to flow one, So like, be very, very careful about even like in your template, if you want to highlight those areas in red, like the customized areas in red so that you absolutely do not forget to change those out. What Lindsay was talking about with the words coming through, there are software platforms, and we use one that we will still get everyone's resume no matter what, but there is a section that lets us know if our keywords that we have set for that job position, if those keywords were mentioned in the person's resume, so or cover letter. So if you are reading a job description, I would try to be smart about pulling out keywords. So if this is a JavaScript developer position and they're talking about JavaScript, they're talking about React, they're talking about like some things that you think like might be dynamic to that particular position, make sure that you're using those exact same words in your resume, because it's basically trying to match up, like, does this resume match up with our position well? And if you have tailored your resume and cover letter to match up well to that position, it's going to really, really work in your favor.
Yep, totally. I think that's why a lot of my resumes, I never hear back anything when I was first applying, because I didn't carefully do this and it was probably going through some kind of bot. So yes, these are my 3 that I went through when I was going from college and trying. So I graduated from college and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got an internship where I got to build a website for my college, and I was paid all summer to kind of learn how to build a website. And then I was like, is this a job I can do? I kind of like doing this. So then I tried to apply for jobs in web development and failed for quite a while. So I learned a lot along the way, especially with my resumes and like things that people told me I should be doing with my resumes and not doing, and getting advice from people who weren't in the industry and didn't help. So this is just a good way to learn, I think. This is my first one. This is right out of college. It's very boring. It's very bland. It's very classic resume. It's got objective at the top, which I still do like, but it's a little bit generic. So I'm just kind of saying like what I want to do. It wasn't for a specific company. It wasn't for a specific role. I just wanted a job. Then education is the next big point, which, as Louis said, that's definitely not as important in most places you're going to be applying. They don't care as much about your education. And I listed out like my thesis title and like all of this unnecessary stuff. I spent way too much space on that. And then my technical skills, I don't know if I ever graduated from really like this list. I don't recommend this style. I think I still have something similar, but I did figure out I needed to like write down my technical skills somehow. So I put it in a big comma separated paragraph. And I was trying to organize stuff. Like I have languages first, and then I kind of go to like databases, SQLite and Postgres. And then I go to like Microsoft Word, Excel, like people, I don't think I need to list that anymore. That's like not relevant to my job role. Highly proficient in Spanish. I don't know if that's relevant. And then I have my experience, and I do have like where I was developing a website, but it would have been good to write about like what technologies did I use to build this website. I didn't really write that in the section, so it would have been nice to see. So that's my first resume. And I didn't hear a lot back with this one. And then somebody told me, this is a low point, they're like, you need to do like a fancy designer resume because that's what people want to see. And I'm not a designer, so I tried. This is what I came up with. And there's a lot going on, and I don't love it. I kind of liked it at the time, but now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, this is too much. So yeah, I'm not a designer. I think there's definitely elements you can bring in, but this is too much, I think. I am not a designer, so I shouldn't have gone this far, but maybe you are better at design than I am, and you could be more creative. But this also didn't work for me for the positions I was applying for. It's like, you know, a full stack web developer. Like, I don't think this is something they cared about me having a skill set in. Maybe it's a little bit nice, but this was too much. And then this is really similar to the resume I have today. Excuse me. So I do have like a little bit of color. I'm using headings a little bit better to group my things. I've moved my experience straight to the top, and I have all of my like relevant web experience, and I'm listing out like, okay, when I worked at Wall to Wall, I used Ruby on Rails, Angular, and API integrations. So I like wrote that out, and I have WordPress in here. So I'm like writing what I'm using. I didn't do that for Bearded though, which I probably should write that in at some point, like what kind of technologies we used there. But there were so many different projects that I wasn't sure how to list everything out. And I did list Girl Develop It was a meetup that I was a part of, and I listed as an experience point, which technically I was doing this on like a week by week basis, and I was a volunteer. This could go in like an activities section. I put it there. I think it's okay. Just depends on what you're doing. But I liked that, you know, it was like a networking group I was part of. It was helping women in tech. And I was like teaching, I was showing them teaching like an HTML and CSS curriculum. So I thought that was valuable to show that I was able to teach that kind of content and be like I know Sparkbox appreciated this because I was doing things for my community, which is something they value. So I think Ben might have seen that and been like, oh, that's great. And then I have my technical skills, which I've listed maybe just a little bit better, but it's still kind of like a list. I'm still not like proud of this, but it's a little bit better. And then I have technical skills and non-technical skills, but the non-technical skills are more related to web development. So like WCAG, accessibility stuff, browser testing, quality assurance, Sketch, Photoshop. I still put in writing, copy editing. Like sometimes small places need somebody who can do everything, so I put it in. And then education, I've cut off on the bottom, but I spent a lot less time on it and a lot less real estate on my resume is for my education. So that's what I have now. That's kind of the trajectory I took. Any questions on those?
Nope.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our introductory session to the Job Preparedness Workshop and are looking forward to the journey we'll take together over the next 4 sessions to become ready and proficient to apply for jobs in the web industry. Tune in to the next session where we'll go over how to read between the lines for developer job postings and how to write a cover letter for the web industry. See you then.